here's Alfredo Valencia, a very good man. Sadly died a few years ago. But he went on making discoveries all the way down that eastern side. This is some terracing he opened up down there. And he also found a diagonal trail and staircase running all the way from the Acta down to the river. And obviously the ordinary farmers and workers lived down in the valley in the usual adobe and compacted mud houses, and they presumably came up this trail to serve the elite in the Acta every day. Valencia also found two more fractures down there on that lower part, and again had the thrilling moment of unblocking the spring that fed them and getting water to flow into them again. So that's some of the changes in new discoveries. There have been a lot of changes in Machu Picchu's local government status. It's obviously always been an important part of the patrimony. But one of the main things was in 1983, here it is, UNESCO made it a World Heritage Site, Santuario Histórico de Machu Picchu. The whole surroundings were turned into it. In 1999, they got national park status. This is about 36. There's Machu Picchu right up in the north. There's Ollantaytambo. So this is about 36,000 hectares, about 80,000 acres, and this is some of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world, because those eastern slopes of the Andes, where they meet the lowland tropical rainforests of the Amazon, get a lot of rainfall. All the rain that is blown up the Amazon slams into the Andes. So it's a beautifully rich biodiversity, and also you get altitudinal zonation of the vegetation, so it's good that sanctuary is protected. Now, another great realm of change is in restoration and reconstruction. And because Machu Picchu was built as a single entity and only was occupied for only about 50 or 60 years, so all the building material is still there. And so the Peruvian have a bit of a reconstruction was done by Valcárcel and Bingham, but it's been intensified in recent decades. And this is how that bit of Machu Picchu looked when I first saw it. Just see the state of those buildings. This is how they've been restored. A few romantics say, "Oh, wouldn't it have been nice to leave them like a ruin?" But it was pointless to do that, because they've been beautifully restored to the gable, and they didn't attempt to restore Inca thatch roofs, but they restored the walls beautifully. And that Peru can be really proud of this. The Inca sites have been restored all the way down the Vilcanoto, Urubamba, all the sites on the Inca Trail. Now they're doing all the sites in Vilcabamba. And this is terrific work, done to the highest standards of archaeology and aesthetics. And I applaud it. At Machu Picchu it's now ended. They have no more restoration work needing to be done there. Obviously, there were a lot of small objects found. This is down at the bottom of the hill. There's a visitor center, a little museum, and behind it there's a workshop where they're constantly, here's this chap. I took that picture just a few months ago, putting an Inca pot, repairing it. When Bingham left in 1915, he took about 350 objects that they'd found in their clearing. He took them for further study on loan to Yale University. And then the decades went by. Peru asked for them back several times. And it wasn't until 2011, nearly a century of loan, that they finally returned to Peru. They're in a little museum in Cusco, Casa Concha Museum. It's 360 objects that Bingham had come across. There's nothing of any great beauty in that collection, but it's very interesting to see all the everyday objects that were being used in a royal estate. Now, up to now, all these different types of change, they're mostly beneficial, but the visitor experience has changed hugely, not always beneficially. In the old days, there used to be this nice little train that went from Cusco at crack of dawn, and it went as far as the bridge below the Acta, Puente Ruinas. But then, and that's what I used to go in. But in the late 60s, there were a series of landslides which prevented the track getting as far as the bridge. By the way, there's no road to Machu, as we all know. But thanks to that gorge that protected it from being discovered, it would be a disaster if there were a road and buses and taxis at any hour of the day. So you can only get there by train. But because of the landslides, the train had to stop a couple of kilometers up the Vilcanosa-Urubamba River. And so in the 70s, a few little houses started being built at the railhead. It's a place, there's a hot spring there, so it's known as Aguas Calientes. But it being the place where all tourists got off the train, it mushroomed. And it turned into a hellhole of all the shops, tattoo parlors, places where you get your woolies. But and it grew, and and then it cleaned its act up in the 1980s, 90s, and it's smartened up a bit now, and it offers quite a good range of accommodation from really quite good hotels to campsites and doss houses, and of course every sort of shop. But the great thing about Aguas Calientes is that it's totally out of sight of the Acta. And so, in a sense, it actually does us a favor, because it's so horrible, but it takes all the ugly side of mass tourism and hides it. So in the Acta itself, and then there is now, and never has been, anything commercial. There's never been any touts, any gift shops, any commercial activity of any sort. So in a way, one's grateful to Aguas Calientes for handling all that. To get up to the Yacta, this zigzag road, the Hiram-Bingham Road, that was built just before I first went. That was built in the late 50s. And there at the top of it is the hotel. And then there's that wall we keep talking about. As I said, the hotel, it also serves lunches to day visitors in that end. This is the way it used to be, like a sort of, this is in its cheap and cheerful days. Sorry. But in 2006, I think it was, in 2002, Orient Express, that company founded by my friend Jim Sherwood, an American ship owner who created the Orient Express company, and Jim and his wife had a terrific eye for beauty and places that were of historical or architectural interest. So he bought the railway, the entire railway, and this hotel, and several other hotels in Cusco, in Peru. But Jim had a great eye for beauty, but he also had a nose for profit. So this hotel is unique because, of course, there's no room for any rival hotel or water up there. So there can never be another hotel right up alongside the ruin. So Jim started it up and quadrupled the price. One night in that hotel, admittedly full board, is £1,150, not dollars. And then Orient Express, he also bought the railway, and they created this luxury train, the Hiram-Bingham train, which has vista domes and comfortable seats. That costs $1,000 to go from Cusco back in that train. There is for the rest of us, a cheaper train, $140. But the Orient Express company was bought by Belmond in 2014, but they still cater only to the richer tourists. A very nice way to get to the Yacta, other than the train, as we explained, is the only way, is along the Inca Trail. If you're reasonably fit and have got a few days, it's lovely. It's a terrific walk. And you get to see 5 Inca sites on that. One of them is Huayna, which it has all the right attributes. It's got huge banks of terracing. It's got the factures splashing down there, and it's got some elite stone housing for whoever it was, the priesthood. As in Machu Picchu, we don't know for sure what went on, but it all been beautifully restored. I was once at one when they were restoring all that upper part. Now, up to now, it's been all the changes. Now, I'm going to move on to the challenges. Machu Picchu is a world site, ultimate South America, Iguazu Falls and Machu Picchu. Everyone in the world wants to see Machu Picchu the way they want to see Petra or Venice or Great Wall of China or pyramids or all the great sites. So Machu Picchu has the visitor attendance. The top right is 550,000 a year in 2006. Bottom right, that's trebled at the start of COVID to 1.5 million a year. It's quite interesting that the nacionales, which is Peruvians, and also Ecuador and Bolivia, which were in the Inca Empire, they pay a much smaller entry fee because the Peruvian government very correctly wants every Peruvian to see this jewel in their heritage. So as you can see, the nacionales are about a quarter to a third of the attendance. The extranjeros are roughly half other South Americans and half the rest, North American, Asian, European. But this is the great challenge facing the management. The two key figures are that annual attendance, which my friends who run it think that 1.5 million is about as high as it should ever be. But the other key figure is the number of people number of visitors per day, particularly in the high season, which is from May to September, which is the non-rainy months, and also happens to be the school holiday period. In 2020, only 3 years ago, this daily figure was increased to 2,250. Then the following year, in 2021, the management was made to raise this by another 1,000 to 3,044. And in July of that same year, it was raised by another whopping 1,000 to 4,044. And when you think in this room there may be 100 of us, there's 50 times that in this relatively small. The Yak is about the size of Belgravia, about Belgrave Square and Eaton Square. And now, only last week, the gang of people running Aguas Calientes, who were described in the Lima press as mafiosi, which is what they are, they demanded of the Minister of Culture that figure be raised to 5,050 a day. And they also want 1,000 of those tickets not to be sold online. Because selling online, of course, they can keep very tight control of the daily entry. But the gang running Aguas Calientes wanted the minister to let them sell 1,000 of those tickets down there in Machu Picchu. So a would-be visitors has to go down, spend the night in Aguas Calientes, which is what they want, and then queue up next day in the hope of getting a ticket. This has all happened literally a few days ago, so I don't know whether the minister as a lady, whether she's acceded to that request. But this is the great challenge, this visitor numbers. This is Jose Bastante, an excellent archaeologist who was running Machu Picchu until very recently, good friend of mine. And he's doing whatever he can to control that attendance. Jose has a mantra, which is that stones are eternal, but only in poetry. In real life, that footfall of those thousands of steadily erodes the stone, obviously imperceptibly, but irreversibly. So they do a lot of things. One of the first things was to have a visitor go only along certain routes, and that's that double staircase above the factories. It used to be great fun. No one knows why they had the two stairs running side by side, but it used to be great fun, run up and down that. But that, of course, is there in the foreground. It's very discreetly done, but just a piece of things. And no tourist will ever go on those again. So most of Machu Picchu now, you can see it, but you can't go into most places. Visitors have to go along certain routes. But then the most trodden places, some of them they add plastics and chemicals and tamp it like this against the footwall. Other places they've sunk grids into the grass. There's Jose in the background. And then which is necessary and good, but they also felt they had to build these hideous staircases and platforms, which I suppose had to be done, but it's very sad, because until, this is very recent, in the last few years, until then, there was nothing in Machu Picchu that an Inca wouldn't have seen. But with that footfall, they had to do this. Then Jose's, he's very tough. He also, Machu Picchu used to have no writing of any sort, which again was, to me, very good. Incas have no writing. Now they've had to put up a few signs. And Jose, he's so, this is the main gate through that wall. But so many people would take a picture of it, and that was eroding the stone in front of it. So he's put up a prohibited, and then he also, as they went through that gate, they sort of rubbed it. So no tocar, do not, see, he tried to get people not to sit on stones anymore and not to rub them. This is, they've now even got wheelchair to some parts of the actor. This would have amazed the Incas, because A, they didn't have any wheels, and B, they certainly didn't worry about disabled people. That group are looking at another little enigmas. These two rock outcrops have been shaped. Bingham called them mortars. Now there's a theory that they were mirrors for observing the stars. I don't buy either of those explanations, but equally no one's come up with anything better. Then another thing they did was to have a separate entry path and exit path. There's the edge of the hotel, as done up by Jim Sherwood. That's the lunching part. This is the offices of the management, very modest offices. That's the main gate, and that's the entry route. And then they built this new exit. One little tip, that there is the loo, and there's very correctly no conveniences in the Acta. So everyone should visit that before they go in. Because if you're caught short and leave, you can't go in again. You have single entry, and you can't buy a new ticket. So when you're next to Machu Picchu, make sure you stop it in there before you go in. Then another innovation, there's Jose again. He's greatly fixing up the visitor center down at the bottom by the bridge. And he's trying to get, you can still buy single tickets for Machu Picchu, I'm glad to say, but most people go in a group. And he's trying to get the tour leaders to give their main talk about Machu Picchu and its history down in the visitor center rather than up in the Acta. And that's the staff, excellent staff. There are the archaeologists in the middle at the back. But they're fine people. Most of them have got Inca faces and these very unobtrusive uniforms. So it's beautifully run. They come up in a bus at dawn every day. They live down in Aguascalientes. Then another innovation that Jose Basante, who by the way is not there anymore, he got booted out. He was being a little bit too strong. He's up running Huelap ruin in northern Peru now, only in the last few months. But another of his innovations, and this is the only thing where he and I don't agree, he has 5 circuits, and you have to choose one of the 5 circuits. And this is circuit number 2, which by the way is the best of the circuits. That's the blue line. You come in, you always come up here to get that great classic view, the one that I showed at the beginning. But this circuit does take in the principal temple and the 3 windows and gets up to the Intihuatana, but it doesn't have and then it had the sacred rock, but it didn't have the sun temple. So I hope these circuits will be done away with, and even if it means and people will because with the circuits it was almost impossible for someone who didn't know Machu Picchu to decide what not to see, and for those who know it well, equally had to decide which circuit to choose. So I hope that's one of the Jose Bastantes and his 2 predecessors, Miguel Zamora and Bastante. They all of them are absolutely dedicated to Machu Picchu. They've given their lives to it, and so this is why they so hate to see it being eroded. That's the end of Circuit 2, where they get to climb up to from that. That's the principal temple. The Temple of the 3 Windows there, up to the Intihuatana. This is an abomination. on the plain above Cusco, near Chinchero, Chinchero is a lovely Inca site. Pachacuti's son, Tupac Inca Yupanqui, was the other great conquering Inca, but Chinchero was his rural estate, and he loved it. He spent the last 10 years of his life there. This ridiculous airport, which is the biggest construction job being done by the Peruvian government. It have 5 departure lounges, and it's right next to Chinchero. Chinchero, peaceful, beautiful place. And all my Peruvian friends think this will be a mammoth white elephant. No international airline will touch it. It's too close to Lima. Lima has a city of over 10 million and a huge passengers of business and ordinary passengers. This new airport, which is higher than Cusco, it's too high. It's too high to land a big plane, and it's surrounded by mountains. And many of the big international airlines don't even include Peru. Lima, they're certainly not going to go there as well. So the one good thing about it is that I don't think it will increase the footfall in Machu Picchu at all, but it will be, I think, and a lot of my friends think, complete disaster. So, the future. At the beginning, I showed the classic view from Machu Picchu mountain towards Huayna Picchu. This is the opposite direction. This is looking down from Huayna Picchu. And you can just see the top of the Hiram Bingham Road there. Machu Picchu is looking stunningly beautiful. And people will want to go there forevermore, and rightly so, particularly Peruvians. My only tip to people would be avoid the high season. Go in the rainy season, particularly at the end of it in sort of January to April. Take a waterproof cape. You might run into some heavy rain, but I've been there in February and March and had lovely clear weather. But at least you won't get that 5,500 visitors competing for tickets. But of all those sites in the world, Machu Picchu has got the most beautiful forested mountains. I don't think there's any other UNESCO heritage site that can match that beauty. So all of us, well, I think most of you have been, but it's well worth going again and again. Thank you.
I'd like to thank John very much for a very stimulating talk. I mean, nobody else has been there for as long and seen as much of that change and seen as much of that change with a critical eye, but also with an interest in all the detail. I think you've had a lot of interesting experience. I think very good advice about going to the toilet. I must admit, I made the mistake of not doing it once, and it's a very useful bit of advice, okay? But we've been treated, I think, to be given a bit of an insight into how much has changed in our understanding of Machu Picchu over the years. Another bit of John's advice was not to keep people here too long, give people a chance to get a drink. So he's, rather than having more questions at the moment, I'm sure John will answer a few questions while we're outside. But I'll pass over to Zori, I think, just as a couple of comments from the Anglo-Peruvian Society, and then we'll be able to go outside. I'd like you all to thank John very much again for a stimulating talk.
To say thank you very much to Dr. Hemming for this thought-provoking lecture, and to Bill Siller and John Beauclerc for being here as well. And just a quick announcement that we, the Anglo-Peruvian Society, are having our Christmas party on the 14th of December at the Ambassador's private residence. And on the 29th of February, we're having our Peru tournament, so we hope to see you all there. And please stay with us for some drinks and canapés. And thank you again, Dr. Hemming.